Shvara Parama Krishna Sakchirananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakara Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha Lakshavriteshu Surabira Pipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasrashata Sambrama Sevyamanam Govindamari Purusham Dhamaham Bhajami Venum Kwanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham Barhavatam Sam Asitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindamari Purusham Dhamaham Bhajami Alola Chandra Kala Sadvanamalya Vamshi Ratnangadam Pranaya Keli Kalavilasam Shyamam Tribangalalitam Niyata Prakasham Govindamari Purusham Dhamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pashyanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindamari Purusham Dhamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Durlabham Atma Bhaktao Govindamari Purusham Dhamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Shatavatsara Sambragamyo Vayodadhapi Manaso Munipungavanam Sopyastiya Prapadasimnya Vichintya Tatve Govindamari Purusham Dhamaham Bhajami Ekopyasaura Charitum Jagadanda Kotim Yat Shakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayaya Dantaha Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindamari Purusham Dhamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavi Tatayo Manujasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusha Suktaryameva Nagama Patitaistu Vanti Govindamari Purusham Dhamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Taya Kalabhihi Goloka Eva Nivasatya Kilatma Bhuto Govindamari Purusham Dhamaham Bhajami Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Daiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindamari Purusham Dhamaham Bhajami Ramari Muti Shukalani Amena Tishtan Nanavataram Akarod Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Parama Pumanyo Govindamari Purusham Dhamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhapato Jagadanda Koti Koti Vishesha Vasudari Vibhuti Bhinnam Tad Brahma Nishkalamanantam Ashesha Bhutam Govindamari Purusham Dhamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Shatani Sute Traigunyatad Vishaya Veda Vitaya Mana Sattva-valambi Parasattvam Vishuddha Sattvam Govindamari Purusham Dhamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasatmataya Manasu Yapraninam Pratipalam Smarutam Upetya Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jayatya Jastram Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Golokanamni Nijadamni Taleta Tasya Devi Mahesha Haridama Suteshu Teshu Te Te Prabhava Nichaya Vihitashta Yena Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shristi Stiti Pralaya Sarana Shakti Reka Jayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Viparati Durga Ichchanu Rupam Api Yasya Chacheshtate Sa Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shiram Yatada Vikara Vishesha Yogad Sanjayate Nahitata Pratagasti Heto Yashambhutam Apitata Samupaiti Karyad Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Departure Vahida Shantanam Abhyupetya Dipayate Vrivita Hetu Sumana Dharma Yasthadrag Eva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yakaranarnab Atale Bhajati Sma Yoga Nidramananda Jagadanda Saroma Kupaha Adhara Shaktim Avalambya Param Smamurtim Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yashaika Nishvasita Kalamatavalamya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadandanata Vishnur Mahansa Ihayasya Kala Vishesho Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pasmanyatashma Sakaleshu Dijeshu Tejaha Swiyam Kiya Prakatayata Vidadvadatra Brahmaya Esha Jagadanda Vidhana Karta Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yatpada Pallava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dvanve Pranama Samaye Saganadi Rajaha Vignan Vidhantum Alamasya Jagatrayasya Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahi Ganganam Amumurudishascha Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vivavanti Vishanti Yamcha Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yachakshuresha Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Suramuti Rashesha Teja Yasyagnaya Brahmati Sambrata Kala Chakro Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Shrutayastapamsi Brahmari Kita Patagava Dayashcha Jiva Yadatra Matra Vibhava Prakatha Prabhava Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yastvindra Gopamatavendra Mahosa Karma Bandanu Rupa Palabhajanam Atanoti Karamani Nirdahati Kintu Cha Bhakti Bhajam Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bhiti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gaurava Sevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tassa Sadrishintanama Purete Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Sriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Druma Bhumischintamani Ganamayitoyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanamapi Vamshi Priyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Paramapi Taraswadyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradri Sravati Surabhi Vyascha Sumahan Nimeshar Dakyo Vavratati Nahi Atrapi Samayaha Bhaje Shwita Dvipam Tamaham Iha Golokam Itiyam Vidantaste Santa Shiti Virala Chara Katipaye Ato Vacha Mahavishnur Bhagavantam Prajapatim Brahman Mahatva Vijnane Prajasarge Chachinmatihi Pancha Shlokim Imam Vidyam Vatsatatvam Nibodame Prabhude Jnana Bhakti Vyam Atmayananda Chinmayi Ude Tunutama Bhaktir Bhagavat Prema Lakshana Pramanais Tatsadacharais Tadabhyaser Nirantaram Bodhayanat Manatmanam Bhaktimapyutamam Labe Yasya Shreyaskaram Nasti Yaya Nivritum Apnuyad Yasariyati Mameva Bhaktim Tameva Sadayed Dharmananyan Parityajya Mamekam Bhaja Vishwasan Yadrishi Adrishi Shradha Siddhir Bhavati Tadrishi Kurvan Nirantaram Karma Loko Yam Anuvartate Tenaiva Karmana Dhyayan Mam Param Bhakti Michchati Aham Hi Vishwasya Characharasya Bijam Pradhanam Prakriti Pumamscha Maya Hitam Teja Idam Bibarshi Vide Videhi Twamato Jaganti Ishvara Parama Krishna Sakchit Ananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Iti Sri Brahma Samhita Sampurnam Hari Om. May I have the Sarta Darshini, please? Welcome. Very nice to see you today. Hare Krishna. Om Purnamadak Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate Ishavasyam Idang Sarvam Yatkincha Jagatyam Jagat Tena Tyaktena Bunjita Magridha Kasya Sviddanam Kurvane Veha Karmani Jijivi Shekshatam Sama Evam Twainanyate Tosti Nakarma Lipite Nare Asurya Namate Loka Andhena Tamasavrita Tamste Pratyabhigachanti Yeke Chapma Hanojana Anejadikam Manaso Javiyo Naina Deva Apnuvam Purvanarshat Tadavato Jnanate Titishtat Tasminapo Matarishva Dadati Tadejati Tanaijati Tadure Tadvantike Tadantarasya Sarvasya Tadu Sarvasya Bhayataha Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmani Vanupashyati Sarva Bhuteshu Chatmanam Tato Na Vijagupsate Yasmin Sarvani Bhutani Atma Evadbhut Vijanataha Tatra Ko Muhakashoka Ekatvam Manupashyataha Saparya Gachukram Makayam Avranam Ashnaviram Shuram Apapa Vidham Kavir Manishi Paryabu Swayambur Yata Tat Yatot Tan Vyardha Shasvat Chashvat Chashvatibhya samabhyaha andham tama pravishyanti ye vidyamupasate tato bhuya evate tamo ya uvidyayam vrataha anyareva hura vidyaya anyarahura vidyaya iti shushumatiranam yenastad vichachakshire vidyam cha yas tad vedopayam saha avidyayam ritum tirtva vidyayam ritum ashnute andam tamak pravishyanti ye sambhuti mupasate tato bhuya ivate tamo yau sambhutyamrata anyarevahu sambhavad anyadahura sambhavad iti shushrumathiranam yenastad vichachakshire sambutim cha vinasham cha yastad vedopayam saha vinashena mrityum tiratva sambhutyamritam ashnute hiranmayena patrena satyasya pihitam mukham tatvam pushana pavranu satyadharmaya drishtyaye pushane karshiyama surya prajapatya vyuharashmin samuha tejo yate rupam kalyanatamam tate pashyami yosavasau purusha somasmi vayur anilamamratam atedam pashmantam shariram om kratos smara kritam smara kratos smara kritam smara Agnenaya supataraya asman vishvani deva vayunani vidvan yuyotyasmashtu harana meno bhuishtam te nama uktim videma. Where's the Sarta Darshini? Won't you ask Ramananda Saka? The book. You had the book in the library. Not online, I just want the book. Vacho vegam manasa krodha vegam jihva vegam udarapasta vegam etan vegam yo vishaheta dhira sarvamapi mam prithivim sashishyat atyara prayashascha prajalpo niyamagraha janashangascha lalyam cha shadbhir bhaktir vinashyati utsahan nishchayad dharyat tat karma pravartanat sangatyagat satovrate shadbhir bhakti prasiddhyati dadati prataganati kuhyam akyati prashyati bhunkte bhojayate chaiva shadvidam priti lakshanam krishneti yasya giritam manasadriyeta dikshasti chet pranati bishcha bhajantam ishyam shushrusaya bhajana vignam ananya manya nindadi shunya hridam ipsita sangalabdhya drishtai swabhava janitar vapushascha doshair na prakritatvam iha bhaktya janasya pashyet gangam basam nakalu budbuddha pena pankar brahma dravavam apagachati niradharmai syad krishna nama charitari sitaptya vidya pito patapta rasanasya narochikanu kintva varad anudilam kalu saiva jushta swadvi kramad bhavati tad gadamula hantri tanama rupa charitadi sukirtananu smrityo kramena rasana manasi niyojya Tishtan Vrajetananuragi Jananugami Kalam Nayed Akilam Ityupadesha Saram Vaikuntaj Janito Vara Madhupuri Tatrapi Rasotsavad Vrindaranyam Udarapani Ramanat Tatrapi Govardhanaha Radha Kundam Ihapi Gokulapate Pramamratap Lavanat Kuryadasya Virajato Giritate Sevam Vivekinakaha Karamipya Parito Hare Priyataya Vyaktim Yayurnaninas Tebyo Jnana Vimukta Bhakti Parama Premaika Nishtastata Tebyasta Pashupala Pankada Drishas Tabyo Pisaradika Prishta Tadvad Iyam Tadiya Sarasitam Nashayat Kakriti Krishnasyo Chai Pranaya Vasati Priyasibhyo Piradha Kundam Chasya Munibir Abitas Tadrig Eva Vyadayi Yet Preshter Apyalam Asulabam Kim Punar Bhakti Bhajam Tat Premidam Sakrit Api Sarasnatur Avishkaroti Shri Upadeshamrita Sampurnam Radhesham. Chapter 5, Bhagavad Gita. Where is it? Ask Ramanandasaka what happened to it. Huh? Where's the Sarta Darshana?
Where is it?
You didn't get it? I thought it was already in there.
No, I don't know which one.
Okay. I thought, okay. All right, if it's not there, it's not there. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5. Arjuna Vacha Sannyasam Karmanam Krishna Punaryogam Chashamshasi Yashtraya Etayorekam Tanme Bruhi Sunishchitam Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sannyasa Karma Yogascha Nrishayasya Karavubhao Tayostu Karma Sannyasat Karma Yogo Vishishyate Yeyasa Nitya Sannyasi Yona Dveshti Nakangshati Nirdvandvo Hi Mahabaho Sukambandat Pramuchate Sankhya Yoga Pratagbala Pravadanti Napandita Ekamapyastita Samyag Ubayor Vindate Palam Yat Sankhya Prapyate Stanam Tad Yogar Apigamyate Ekam Sankyam Cha Yogam Cha Yapashyati Sapashyati Sanyasastu Mahabaho Dukam Aptum Ayogataha Yoga Yukto Manir Brahma Nacharan Adigachati Naiva Kinchit Karomiti Yoga Yoga Yukto Vishuddhatma Vijitatma Jitendriyaha Sarva Bhutatma Bhutatma Kurvan Api Nalipyate. How come the top is cut off? Oh, you got a ladder? Can we fix it? Yeah. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tatvavit Pashyan shrinvan sprashan jigran Ashnan gatshan swapan shwasan, pralapan visrajan grinnan, unmishan nimishan api, indriyan indriyarteshu, vartanta iti dharayan. Change. Brahmanyadaya karmani, sangam tyakva kurutiyaha, lipyatena sapapena, padma patram ivambasa, kaina manasa budya, kevaler indriyerapi, yogina karma kurvanti, sangam tyakvat mashudhaye. Yoga yukta vishudhatma. Yukta karma palam tyaktva shantim apnoti naishtikim. Ayukta karma karina pale sakto nipadyate. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi. Navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvan nakarayam. Nakatritvam nakarmani lokasya srijiti prabhu. Nakarma palasam yogam svabhavastu pavartate. Nadate kaschichit papam naichaiva sukritam vibhuhu. Ajnanen navratam jnanam nena bhuhyanti jantavaha. Change. Jnanena tutadajnanam yesham nashitam atmanaha tesham adityavajnanam prakashayati tatparam tad bhudayas tadatmanas tad nishtas tatparayana gachantya punar avritin jnana nirduta kalmashaha vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastani shuni chaiva shapakecha pandita samadarshinaha ihaiva tera jita sargo yesham samyestitam manaha nirdosham hi samam brahma tasmad brahmanite stita na prarishyet priyam prapya nodvijet prapya cha priyam stira bhudira samudho brahmavid brahmanistitaha bhaya sparshe swasaktatma vindatyatmani yat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute yehi samsparsha bhoga dukkhayo naya evate adyantavanta kaunteya nateshu ramate buddhaha shaknoti haiva yashodhum praksharira vimokshanat kama krodod bhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi naraha yonta sukontara tatantar jyotirevayaha sayogi brahmanirvanam brahmabhuto rigacchati labante brahmanirvanam rishayakshina kalmashaha chinna dvaida yatatmana sarvabhuta hiterataha kama krodha vimuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito brahmanirvanam vartate viditatmanam sparshan kritva bahirbayam chakshush chaivantare bruvoho pranapanau samau kritva nasabyantaracharino yatendriya mano budhir munir moksha parayanaha vigatetsha bhaya krodho yaksada mukta evasaha bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati Om Tat Sat Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Sambade Sannyas Yoga Nama Panchamodhyaya Hari Om. Srimad Bhagavatam, Divinity and Divine Service. We need to start the darshan. It's not here. I thought we ordered one. The two? Okay. So that's all right. I mean, it was in the bookshelf, I thought, and now it's not there. So we need another one. But maybe a label on it that says, if you take it, you die. Okay, that's good. Okay. Vyasuvacha iti samprashna sambrishto vipranam brahmaharshinihi pratipuja vachastesham pravaktum upachakrame sutu vacha yam pravachantam anupetam apeta krityam tvaipayano viraha kartara ajuhava putreti tanmayatayatharavo binedus tam sarva bhutarayam munimanatosmi yaksvanubhavam akila shuti saramekam adhyatmadipam atitirshatam tatamundam samsarinam karunayaha purana kuhyam tam vyasasunum upayami gurum muninam Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet munayak sadhu prishtoham bhavadbhir lokamangalam yakrita krishna samprashno inatma suprasidati savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhoksaje ahaitu kya pratiyata yayatma suprasidati vasudeve bhagavati bhakti yoga prayojitaha janiyat yashu vairagnyam jnanam cha yadahaitukam dharmaksvanushtita pumsam vishvaksena katasuyah Notparayed yadiratim shrama eva hi kevalam dharmasya hyapavargasya nartortayopakalpate nartasya dharmaikantasya labo hismitaha kamasya nendriya pritir labo jiveta yavata Jivasya tattva jignasa narto yashcheha karma bihi vadanti tattva vidas tattvam yajnana badvayam prameti puramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdyate tachchadatana munayo jnana vairagya yuktaya pashyantyatmani chatmanam Bhaktya Shuta Grihitaya Atakumbir Dvija Shreshta Varnashrama Vibhagashaha Svanustistasya Dharmasya Sangsadhir Haritoshanam Tasmadekena Manasa Bhagavan Sattvatam Patihi Shotavya Kirtitavyascha Dheya Pujascha Nityada Yad anudyasina yukta karma granthi nibandanam chindanti kovidastasya kona kuryat kataratim shushrusho shadatanasya vasudeva kataruchihi syan mahat sevaya vipra punyatirtha nishevanan Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridyantaksto Hyapadrani Vitunoti Suhritsatam Nashta Praeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Yutama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Tatarajastamo Bhava Kama Lobadayashjaye Cheta iter anavidham Stitam Sattve Prasidati Evam Prasanna Manaso Bhagavad Bhakti Yogataha Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam Mukta Sangasya Jayate Vidyate Raya Grantish Chijante Sarva Samshayaha Shiyante Chasya Karmani Drishta Evatmanishvare Ato va Kavayo Nityam Bhaktim Paramaya Muda Vasudeve Bhagavati Kurvantyatma Prasadanim Sattvam Rajastamaiti Prakriter Gunasthar Yukta Para Purusha Eka Ihasya Date Stityadaye Harivarinshi Hareti Samja Shreyamsi Tatra Kalu Sattva Tanor Nirnam Suhu Hartiva Dharano Dumas Tasmad Agnis Tarimayaha Tamasastu Rajastasmad Sattvam Yad Brahmadarshanam Bejare Munio Tagre Bhagavantam Adhoksajam Sattvam Vishuddham Shemaya Kalpante Yenutaniha Mumukshavo Ghora Rupan Hitva Bhuta Patinata Narayana Kalashanta Bhajanti Yanasuyavaha Rajastama Prakritaya Samashila Bhajanti Vai Pitrir Bhuta Prajeshadin Shri Aishvarya Prajepsavaha Vasudeva Paraveda Vasudeva Paramakaha Vasudeva Parayoga Vasudeva Parakriyaha Vasudeva Paramyanam Vasudeva Param Tapaha Vasudeva Parodharmo Vasudeva Paragatihi Sa evedam sasarjagre Bhagavan Atma Mayaya Sarasadrupaya Chasau Gunamaya Guno Vibhuhu Taya Vilasiteshweshu Guneshu Gunavaniva Antak Pravishta Abhati Vrijnanena Vradrimbritaha Yata Hyavahito Vanir Darushveka Swayonishu Naneva Bhati Vishvatma Bhuteshu Chatatapuman Asau Gunamayer Bhaver Bhuta Sukshmendriyatmabihi Swanirmiteshu Nirvishto Bhunkte Bhuteshu Tadgunan Bhavayat Yeshta Satvena Lokan by Lokabhavanaha Lila Vataranurato Devatiryan Naradishu Iti Srimad Bhagavate Mahapurane Paramahansyam Samitayam Pratamaskande Naimishio Prakyani Dvitiyo Dhyayaha Hari Om Vande Garun Isha Bhaktan Ishan Ishavatarakan Tat Prakashams Tatak Shakti Krishna Chaitanya Samjakam. This is the Mangalacharna from Sri Chaitanya Charnamrita, starting with number 1. Vande Guru Nisha Bhaktan Isham Isha Vatarakan tat prakasham tatashchakti Krishna Chaitanya Samjakam. That needs to be fixed. Okay. Do you have that program that automatically in Word it changes the as you type it puts in the diacriticals? How come wherever there's diacriticals it's okay? Vande Guru Nisha Bhaktan Isha Nisha Vatarakan Tat Prakashams Tatach Chakti Krishna Chaitanya Samjakam Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanandao Sahodito Godo Dai Pushpavantao Chitro Shandao Tamonudao Yadadvaitam Brahmupanishadi Tarapyasya Tunubha Ya Atmantarayami Purusha Iti Sosyam Sa Vibhavaha Shad Aishvaryai Purno Ya Iha Bhagavan Sa Swayamayam Nachetanyat Krishna Jagati Paratatvam Paramiha Anarpita Charim Chirat Karunayavatirna Kalau Samarpayitum Unoto Jvalarasam Sobhakti Shriyam Hari Purata Sundara Dyuti Kadamba Sandipitaha Sadaraya Kandare Spuratova Shachinandanaha Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikritir Khladini Shaktirasmad Ekatmanav Avibhuvi Pura Deha Bhedam Katau Tau Chaitanyakyam Prakatam Aduna Tadvayam Chaikyam Aptam Radha Bhava Dyuti Suvalitam Naumi Krishna Swarupam Shri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrisho Vanayaiva Swadyo Yena Bhuta Madarima Kidrisho Va Madiyaha Saukyam Chasya Mad Anubhavata Kidrisham Veti Lobhat Tadbhavadhyah Samajani Shachi Garbha Sindo Harindu Sankarshana Karnato Vashayi Garbhodashayi Chapayobdishayi Sheshaschayasyam Shakalasa Nitya Nandakya Rama Sharanam Mamastu Maya Tite Vyapi Vaikunta Loke Purnaishvaryeshi Chaturavyu Hamadye Rupam Yasyodbhati Sankarshanakyam Tam Shri Nityananda Ramam Prapadye Maya Bharta Janda Shanga Shrayanga Sheti Shakshat Karanam Bodhi Madye Yashaikam Shashi Puman Adi Devas Tam Shri Nityananda Ramam Prapadye Yasyam Shamsha Srila Garbo Dashayi Yanabhya Jamlong Sangatanalam Loka Shrastu Suti Kadhama Datus Tam Shri Nitya Ramam Prapadye Yasyam Shamsha Paratma Kilanam Poshta Vishnur Bhati Dugdabdishayi Shauni Bharta Yat Kala Sopyanantas Tam Shri Nityananda Ramam Prapadye Maya Vishnu Jagat Karta Maya Yaya Sujatyataha Tasyavatara Evayam Advaita Charya Ishvaraha Advaitam Harina Dvaitad Acharyam Bhakti Shamshanad Bhaktavatarami Tam Advaita Charyam Ashraye Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Jayatam Suratau Pangor Mama Manda Mater Gatihi Matsarvaswa Padambo Jao Radha Madana Mohanao Divya Vrindaranya Kalpadrumada Srimad Ratnagara Sinhasanastao Srimad Rala Shila Govinda Deva Preshtali Bhisevya Manau Smarami Shrimandra Sarasarambi Vamshivata Tatastitaha Karshan Venu Swaner Gopir Gopinata Shriyestunaha Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Etina Thakura Godiake Kariyachena Atmasad Etinera Charan Vandon Tine Murnan Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Guru Vashtakam. Sangsara davannalalidha loka Tranaya karunya ghana ghanatvam Praptasya kalyana gunarnavasya Vande guroshi charanaravindam Mahaprabho kirtana nritya gita Vaditra madhyan manasorasena Romancha kampa shutaranga bhajo Vande guroshi charanaravindam Shri vigrahara dhana nityanana Shringaratan mandira marjanadao Yuktasya bhaktamscha niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasada Swadanna Triptan Hari Bhakta Sanghan Kritvaiva Triptim Bhajatasya Daiva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Shri Radhika Madhavayora Para Madhurya Lila Guna Rupa Namnam Pratikshana Swadana Lolupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Siddhyai Yayali Pir Yukti Rapekshaniya Tatrati Dakshyat Atiballabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Sakshat Daritvena Samasta Shastra Ruktastata Bhavjata Eva Sadbihi Kintu Prabhorya Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Yasya Prasadad Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasadan Nagati Kutopi Dhyayan Stuvamstasya Yashastri Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Srimad Gurur Ashtakam Etaduchchar Brahme Mahurte Patati Priyatnad Yastena Vrindavana Nata Sakshad Sevai Vilabhya Janashonte Eva. Shri Shikshashtakam. Chetodarpanamarjanam bhavamahadavagni nirvapanam Shreya kairava chandrika vitaranam vidya vidhu jivanam Anandam pudivardadam pratipadam purnamrita swadanam Sarvatmasnapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrarpita Niyamahita Smaranena Kala Itadrishitava Kripa Bhagavan Mamapi Turdaiva Midrishamiha Janinanuragaha Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Suhishnuna Amanina manadena kirtaniya sada harihi Na dhanam na janam na sundarim kavitam va jagadisha kamaye Mama janmani janmanishvare bhavatad bhaktira haitu kitvayi Ainanda tanuja kinkaram patitam mam vishame bhavam budao Kripaya tava pada pankaja stita dhuli sadrasham bachintaya Nayanam galarashudaraya varanam gadgadarudaya gira Pulakaranichitam vapukada tava nama grahane bhavishyati Yugayatam nimishena chakshusha pravrishayatam Shunyayatam jagat sarvam govinda virahena me Ashlishyava parvatam pinashtumam Adarshanan marmahatam korotu va Yata tata va vidatatu lampato Ma prananatastu se'eva na paraha. Shinamashtakam. Nikila Shuti Mauli Ratnamala Duti Nirajita Pada Pankajanta Ai Mukta Kularu Pasyamanam Paritastvam Varinama Sankshayami Jayanama Dheya Muni Vrindageya He Janaranjanaya Paramakshaраkrite Tumanadaradhapi managutiritam Nikilogratapa patalim valimpasi Yada baso pyudyan kalvalita bhavadvanta vibhavo Drisham tadvandanam apidishati bhakti pranainim Janastasyo datam jagati bhagavan tarine Kriti te nirvaktum ka iha mahimanam prabhavati Yad brahma sakshat kriti nishchayapi Vinashamayati vinana bhogahai Apaiti nama spuranina tatte Prarabdha karmeti viroti vedaha Agadamana Yashoda Nandanao Nandasuno Kamalanayana Gopi Chandra Vrindavanendra Pranata Karuna Krishna Ityaneka Sarupe Tvai Mamarati Ruchar Vardatam Namadhyeya Vacham Vachakam Ityudeti Bhavato Nama Swarupa Tvayam Purvasmat parameva hanta karunam tatrapi janimahe. Yastasmin vihita parabda nivaha prani samantad bhaved. Asyedidam upasya sopihi sadadannam bujau majjati. Sudita shita janarti rashaye. Ramya chit ghana sukha swarupine. Nama gokula mahotsavayate. Krishna purna vapushe namo namaha. Narda vino jivana. Sudormi nirasa madhuri pura. Tvam Krishna nama kamam. Spurame rasane rasena sada. Shri Jagannath Ashtakam. Kadachit kalindi tata vipina sangita karavo. Mudabiri nari vadana kamalasvadambadhupa. Rama Shambhu Brahma Marapati Ganesha Chittapado. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu me. Bhuje Savye Venum Shirasi Shiki Picham Katitate. Dukulam Netrante Sahachara Kataksham Vididhate. Sada Shrima Vrindavana Vasati Lila Parichayo. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu me. Mahambude stire kanaka ruchire nilashikare. Vasan prasadanta sahaja balabhadrena balina. Subhadra madhyasta sakala sura seva vasarado. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu me. Kripa Paravara Sajala Jalada Shreni Ruchiro. Ramavani Ramaspura Ramala Panke Ruhamuka. Surendra Aradya Shutigana Shika Gita Charito. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu me. Ratarudho Gacchan Pati Milita Bhudeva Patalai. Stuti Pradurbhavnam Pratipadamupakanya Sadaya. Daya Sindhur Bandhu Sakala Jagata Sindhu Sutaya. Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu me. Parabrahma Pida Kuvalaya Dulo Pulanayano. Nivasini Ladro Nihita Charano Nanta Shirasi. Rasanando Radha Sarasa Vapura Lingana Sukho Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Navayache Rajam Nachakanakamanikhya Vibhavam Nayacheham Brahmyam Sakala Janakamyam Varavadhum Sada Kale Kale Pramata Patina Gita Charito Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Haratvam Samsaram Drutataram Surapate Haratvam Papanam Vitatam Aparam Yadavapate Aho dine nate nihita charano nishchitamiram Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Jagannatha Swami Nayana Patagami Bhavatu Me Jagannathashtakam Punyam Yapatet Prayata Shuchi Sarvapa Vishuddhatma Vishnu Lokam Sagachati Gopremanande Nitai Gaura Haribol 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 Nitai Gaura Haribol Krishna Book Krishna Book Krishna 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 He Krishna 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 He Krishna 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 Rakshamam Krishna 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 Pahimam Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rakshamam Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Pahimam. I'm sorry if we missed anybody's favorite ashtakams or shlokas this morning. We did the best we can, but just like a small beaked bird can only take one drop out of the ocean, we try our best and we can only get a little bit, enough to wet our beak for the day.
I'm thinking that Hiral Mataji and her team have excelled themselves. It's just, the temple is looking so beautiful. I just entered today morning and I was just shocked by how beautiful it is today.
From Hiral and team?
Yes.
Let's give them a big hand. We walked into the Vaikuntha Loka. We're continuing with our reading, perpetual reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the form of the summary study of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Welcome. Thank you for coming. And first I will read from the Sarta Darshini. Where was this anyway? Where was it hidden? The Bhagavad Stuti. I offer my obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Vasudeva. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, under Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, in loving service unto the personality of God, it is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. After Lord Krishna departed for his abode along with religious principles and transcendental knowledge, this Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, has arisen like the sun in this age of Kali to enlighten those who have no spiritual vision. Srimad Bhagavatam is the spotless Purana. It is most dear to the Vaishnavas because it describes the pure and supreme knowledge of the Paramahamsas. The Srimad Bhagavatam reveals the means for becoming free from all material work, together with the processes of transcendental knowledge, renunciation, and devotion. Anyone who seriously tries to understand Srimad Bhagavatam, who properly hears and chants it with devotion, with what? Devotion. Becomes completely liberated. Srimad Bhagavatam is declared to be the essence of all Vedanta philosophy. One who has felt satisfaction from its nectarian mellow will never be attracted to any other literature. Have you all felt satisfaction from the nectarian mellow? Yes. Very good. One, save yourself a bundle on books and everything else. One who, with undeviating attention, constantly recites the Srimad Bhagavatam. How many here? One who, with undeviating attention, constantly recites Srimad Bhagavatam. All of you. At every moment of every hour. Very good. As well as one who faithfully hears even one verse, or half a verse, or a single line, or even half a line, certainly purifies his very self. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Srimad Bhagavatam is as great as Krishna himself, the Supreme Lord, and the shelter of everything. In each and every verse and syllable of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there are multifaceted meanings, for it is as infinite as Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said the Srimad Bhagavatam is full of Krishna prema. Full of what? It is non-different from the beautiful body of Krishna, and it is part of Krishna himself, for it describes Krishna's confidential pastimes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, in the beginning, middle, and end, Srimad Bhagavatam speaks only of devotional service to Krishna. Which part of Bhagavatam speaks of devotional service to Krishna? Correct. As such, this literature is eternally perfect, infallible, and infinite, because it contains all truths pertaining to the infinite. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, since the Srimad Bhagavatam speaks exclusively of the truths of pure devotional service, it is unparalleled among the Shastras. No other scripture can compare with Srimad Bhagavatam. Those last 2, 3 were from the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Before that was the Madhya Lila Chaitanya Charitamrita. Before that, 12th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Before that, the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We're continuing with our marathon reading to finish this book before the midnight hour tomorrow, if possible. And if not, we'll extend it to Radhashtami. And if not, we'll extend it till the beginning of Kartik. Chapter 38, Akrura's arrival in Vrindavan. Narada Muni did not mention Krishna's killing of Vyomasura, which means that he was killed on the same day as the Keshi demon. The Keshi demon was killed in the early morning, and after that, the boys went to tend the cows on Govardhan Hill. And it was there that Vyomasura was killed. Both demons were killed in the morning. Akrura was requested by Kamsa to arrive in Vrindavan by evening. After receiving instruction from Kamsa, Akrura started the next morning via chariot for Vrindavan. Via what? And where was he going? Why was he going there? Who asked him to bring Krishna Balaram? Why did he want him to come there? Why did Akrura do it? Because why? It's a complicated answer. It is a complicated answer because Akrura is a pure devotee. And at the same time, he's being asked by Kamsa to do this dastardly duty And Kamsa said, oh, you're my friend, you're my good friend. He was very diplomatic. He said, you do me one little favor. You bring Krishna and Balaram here, we'll kill them. And he revealed his whole plan. And meanwhile, all the way to Vrindavan, Akrura is praying to Krishna. He said, I'm your pure devotee. Please forgive me for this duty I'm doing. And you know my heart. You know that I'm sincere. He was only coming to see Krishna. This indicates that we may be in complicated situations in our lives. There may be ways in which our life seems conflicted, as we have two parts. One is the material part and the other is the spiritual part. And on one side, we're compelled because of our previous activities, our karma, our nature, to act in a certain way, to be part of a certain family, and so forth. On the other hand, we have our aspirations for pure devotional service. Therefore, the Shija Upanishad says what? What verse am I thinking? Vidyam cha yas tadvedo bayam saha avidyayam ritum dhirdva vidyayam ritumashnute. One must learn side by side. That is, nescience and transcendental knowledge. We don't have to cultivate nescience, that's been done. But we have to cultivate transcendental knowledge, but it goes side by side. So don't be discouraged. If you find yourself in an adverse situation, you must go on sincerely practicing devotional service, no matter what the duty is that you have to do at the time. And remember how all these pure devotees, they find themselves in many various kinds of situations, which may seem disadvantageous, but bhakti cannot be checked by any external circumstance whatsoever. Because Akrura himself was a great devotee of the Lord, while going to Vrindavan, he began to pray to the Lord. Devotees are always absorbed in thoughts of Krishna, and Akrura was constantly thinking of Lord Krishna's lotus eyes. He did not know what sort of pious activities he must have performed to gain an opportunity to go see Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram in Vrindavan on that day. A pure Vaishnava always thinks himself unfit to serve Krishna. So Akrura began to think within himself that he was unfit for gaining the transcendental opportunity of seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He considered himself as unfit for seeing Krishna as a materialistic person is for understanding the science of God, or as a fourth-class person, a Shudra, is for studying the Vedas. But then Akrura began to think, by the grace of Krishna, everything is possible. And thus, if he likes, I will be able to see him, just as a blade of grass floating on the waves of a river may by chance come near the shore and gain shelter. A conditioned soul carried away by the waves of material existence may sometimes be saved by the grace of Krishna. Akrura thus thought that if Krishna willed, he would be able to see him. Akrura considered himself most fortunate that he was going to see Krishna, whom great mystic yogis desire to see. He was confident that on that day all the sinful reactions of his past life would be finished and his fortunate human form of life would be successful. Akrura also considered that he was very much favored by Kamsa, who was sending him to bring back Krishna and Balaram, and thus enabling him to see the Lord. Akrura continued to consider that formerly great sages and saintly persons were liberated from the material world simply by seeing the shining nails of the lotus feet of Krishna. How about a verse about the shining lotus nails of Krishna? Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasya bhaktya karmashrayam gatitam udgatayanti santa tadvanda rikta matayo yatayo pirudha shroto ganasta maranam bhajavasudevam. Guess you didn't get any shloka books today. That verse says, Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya. The devotees take a great pleasure in the effulgent toes of the Lord's lotus feet. Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya karmashrayam gratita. Therefore, the knots of karma, karmashrayam gratitam udgratayanti santa, These saintly persons are able to undo the great knot of material life. What page? 217 from the 4th canto. Karma shrayam gratitam udgratayanti santa. This is a very important verse, because as we know, if one doesn't come to this position of relishing the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord, it means he's a person and he has activities. He has relationships. Relationships are complicated, right? And they're diverse. And Krishna has diverse relationships with many different kinds of devotees. Which kind of devotees, which kinds of relationships does Krishna have? Dasya ras means what? Dasya means servitor. Who's an example of a servitor of the Lord? Huh? Hanuman? Definitely in Dasya ras. How about Sakya ras? How many different kinds of friends does Krishna have? Arjuna, what kind of friend is Arjuna? Arjuna is a city friend, described by Rupa Goswami as a city friend. It's different from the friends in the village. And in the village, you're naming Priyanarmasaka. There's various kinds of friends Krishna has. The science of this Sakya Rasa is mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, in great detail. And Rupa Goswami describes the various categories of friends, and each one have various ways that they serve Krishna through their friendship. Some are more intimate, Vishramba. They have this kind of feeling of equality with Krishna, very intimate. And others are a little bit more towards the servitor side. They feel more like protectors of Krishna. They carry big sticks and things like that, and they're always looking out. Nobody messes with Krishna, and so forth. And there are some friends that are so intimate that they help Krishna in his go-betweens with the cowherd girls and so forth. Their job is they take Krishna's side when Krishna is not there, and then when Krishna is there, then he takes the other. They take the other side, very diplomatic, and so forth. So there are many different kinds of friendships, and then Vatsalya Ras. Who's in Vatsalya Ras? Yashoda is definitely in Vatsalya Ras. She's breastfeeding Krishna. And at the same time, she's making milk for him on the stove. This is a very special milk from cows that were selected from the best of the best herd, because there was a complaint why Krishna is not taking this milk. Why don't you make it the best perfect? So they were making it for him. And when she put him down, she was going to attend to his service by attending to the milk on the stove. And then Krishna became angry. He broke the butter pot, ran away. And when Mother Yashoda came back, she ran after him, finally caught up to him. And then she started tying him up. Described something, she even took the ribbon from her hair to try to add on to the length of the rope and so forth. And why? Because she wanted to protect Krishna. This overwhelming feeling, maternal feeling towards Krishna is there. And there are many, many different kinds of mothers and parents that Krishna have. And then Madhurya. And we read the other day the Rasa dance section about how there are many different kinds of gopis also, from different categories. Some of them came from where? That were described in Krishna Book in the Rasa dance. They were munis from their previous life. They were with Lord Ramachandra, and they saw the beauty of Lord Ramachandra, and they wanted to have a conjugal relationship with him, but that was not possible because he was Ekavrat. And so then he gave them his blessing, that you come next time when I come as Krishna, and then you can enter into this. I'll fulfill your heart's desire. Ye yata mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manusha partasarvashaha. According to one's desire, Krishna fulfills it. What's a verse from the Brahma Samhita that says, those who desire to serve Krishna in various ways, those who serve Krishna in various ways, Krishna accommodates. Yam kama krodha sahaja pranayadi bhiti vatsalya moha guru gaurava sevya bhavai sanchintya tasya sadrishin tanumapurete govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. That verse says that one may approach Krishna in a variety of different moods. Kama, out of lust; krodha, out of anger; bhiti, out of fear, and so forth. And Krishna accordingly awards one a particular kind of body in order to serve him in that way. What's another verse from Brahma Samhita that gives an indication that Krishna reciprocates with a particular person's way of approaching him? Pantastu koti shatavatsara sambragamyo. Is that it? No. Yad bhava bhavi tadiyo manujastataiva samprapya rupa mahima shayanana bhusha suktaryameva nigama pratitaistu vanti govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. Can we hear that? See that verse? Pantastu yad bhava bhavita. Better give him the microphone. 343. Okay, give her the microphone. She's got it. Tell us what the verse means, the word for word.
Yet for whom bhava with devotion, bhavita are imbued, diyaha whose hearts, manuja men, tata eva similarly, samprapya having gained, rupa beauty, mahima greatness, asana thrones, yana conveyances, bhushaha and ornaments, suktai by Vedic hymns, yam whom, eva certainly, nigama by the Vedas, pratitai told, stuvanti offer praise, govindam Govinda, adi purusham the original person, tam him, aham I, bhajami worship. I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra shuktas told by the Vedas by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments.
Purport. In discussing rasa, we meet 5 kinds of devotion or service: shanta or unattached, dasya or pertaining to reverential willing service, sakya or friendship, vatsalya or parental love, and shringara or juvenile love. The devotees who are charged with the ideas of their respective service serve Krishna eternally and ultimately reach the goal of their respective ideals. They attain the real nature of their self befitting their respective rasas, their glories, conveyances, seats befitting their sacred service, and transcendental qualities of ornaments enhancing the beauty of their real nature. Those who are advocates of Shanta Ras attain the region I know it's there, I just can't see it. That's the whole problem with life. Those who are advocates of Shanta Ras attain the region of Brahma Paramatma, the seat of eternal peace. Those of Dasya Rasa get the Vaikuntha, the spiritual majestic abode of Sri Narayan. Those of Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya Rasa, juvenile love, attain Golokadham, Krishna's abode, above Vaikuntha. They worship Krishna by the suktas depicted in the Vedas with the ingredients and objects befitting their respective rasas in those regions. The Vedas, under the influence of the spiritual potency in certain passages, speak of the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. The liberated souls chant the name, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Lord under the guidance of the same spiritual potency. That's clear, huh? And then, yet pada pankacha palasa vilasya bhakta. Can we see that verse? What number is it again? 4 what? 422. 39. Yet We'll say responsively, Yat pada pankaja responsively. Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya. Yat pada pankaja palasha vilasa bhaktya. Karamashayam gratitam udgartayanti santaha. Karamashayam gratitam udgratayanti santaha. Karamashayam gratitam udgratayanti santaha. Tadvanda rikta matayo yatayo pirudha. Shroto ganasta maranam pajavasudevam. Yet, whose, pada, feet, pankaja, lotus, palasha, petals or toes, vilasa, enjoyment, bhaktya, by devotional service, karma, fruit of activities, ashayam, desire, gratitam, hard knot, udgratayanti, root out. If I was going to say root out, what word would I use? Santaha, devotees. Tat, that. Vat, like. Na, never. Riktamatayaha, persons devoid of devotional service. Yatayaha, ever increasingly trying. Api, even though. Rudha, stopped. Shrotaganaha, the waves of sense enjoyment. Have you ever experienced a wave of sense enjoyment? Okay. Just wanted to check and see if we're all alive. Tam, unto him. Aranam, worthy to take shelter. Bhaja, engage in devotional service. Vasudevam, unto Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. Translation. The devotees who are always engaged in the service of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord can very easily overcome hard-knotted desires for fruit of activities. Because this is very difficult, the non-devotees, the jnanis and yogis, although trying to stop the waves of sense gratification, cannot do so. Therefore, you are advised to engage in the devotional service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. Purport. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. There are three kinds of transcendentalists trying to overcome the influence of the modes of material nature. The jnanis, yogis, and bhaktas. All of them attempt to overcome the influence of the senses, which is compared to the incessant waves of a river. The waves of a river flow incessantly, and it is very difficult to stop them. Similarly, the waves of desire for material enjoyment are so strong that it cannot be stopped by any process other than bhakti yoga. The bhaktas, by their transcendental devotional service unto the lotus feet of the Lord, become so overwhelmed with transcendental bliss that automatically their desires for material enjoyment stop. The jnanis and yogis who are not attached to the lotus feet of the Lord simply struggle against the waves of desire. They are described in this verse as rikta matayaha, which means devoid of devotional service. In other words, the jnanis and yogis, although trying to be free from the desires of material activities, actually become more and more entangled in the false philosophical speculation or strenuous attempts to stop the activities of the senses as stated previously. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayat Yashu Vairagnyam Jnanam Cha Yadahaitukam. Here also the same point is stressed. Bhaja Vasudevam indicates that one who is engaged in the loving service of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, can very easily stop the waves of desires. As long as one continues to try to artificially stop the waves of desires, he will certainly be defeated. That is indicated in this verse. Desires for fruitive activities are strongly rooted. But the trees of desire can be uprooted completely by devotional service, because devotional service employs a superior desire. It employs what?
Superior desire.
What's a verse from the Bhagavad Gita that describes superior desire? Vishaya vinivartante nirahara sedehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param jishvar nivartate. One can give up inferior desires when engaged in superior desires. To try to stop desires is impossible. One has to desire the supreme in order not to be entangled in inferior desires. There it is in a nutshell. One has to desire the supreme in order not to be entangled in inferior desires. Jnanis maintain a desire to become one with the Supreme, but such desire is also considered to be kama, lust. A verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita that describes the difference between the Jnanis and the karmis and the bhaktas. Nishkama taiva shanta, Krishna Bhakta Nishkama Taiva Shanta Bhukti Mukti Siddhikami Sakali Ashanta, which means that only the bhaktas are peaceful because, why? They have no material desires at all. But the bhuktis who are, they're interested in? Bhukti. They want material enjoyment. Mukti, they want something. They want to be liberated from the whole deal. And siddhi, they want to look in the mirror and say, I got some power. Kami, they're all kamis. They all have some material, some kind of desire that holds them in the material world. Sakali ashanta, therefore they're not peaceful because they want something. But Krishna Bhakta Nishkam, they have no desires, the bhaktas. Nishkam, Taivashanta, whatever Krishna wants, that's what they want. They align themselves with Krishna's desire. Yes?
There's one verse from the Bhagavatam, I was just reading that yesterday, which talks about the same thing. It's 7th canto, 9th chapter, verse number 53. So it's Prahlad, when he pacifies Lord Nrsimhadev. So in the end, Nrsimhadev is saying, my dear Prahlad, you may live a long life. One cannot appreciate or understand me without pleasing me, but one who has seen or pleased me has nothing more for which to lament for his own satisfaction. So I just thought I'll share that.
This is the formula to desire, but it's a superior desire because you desire only to please Krishna. This is oneness with Krishna, to be one in desire. And if I have independent desire, then there's some discord, and I'm not peaceful. Going back to Yatpada Pankaja Palasha. Is that where we are now? Okay. Similarly, thank you, Ramananda, that's brilliant. Similarly, the yogis desire mystic power, and that is also kama. And the bhaktas, not being desirous of any sort of material enjoyment, become purified. There's no artificial attempt to stop desire. Desire becomes a source of spiritual enjoyment under the protection of the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord. It is stated herein by the Kumaras that the lotus feet of Lord Krishna are the ultimate reservoir of all pleasure. One should therefore take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord instead of trying unsuccessfully to stop desires for material enjoyment. As long as one is unable to stop the desire for material enjoyment, there is no possibility of becoming liberated from the entanglement of material existence. It may be argued that the waves of a river are incessantly flowing and that they cannot be stopped, but the waves of the river flow toward the sea. When the tide comes over the river, it overwhelms the flowing of the river, and the river itself becomes overflooded. This is called an estuary. It means that the river, the ocean backs up, and then actually there's fish that live in the estuary. They can live in both salt and fresh water, but because at certain times the ocean overwhelms the river and it backs up so far with salt water. When the waves from the sea become more prominent than the waves from the river, similarly, a devotee with intelligence plans so many things for the service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness that stagnant material desires become overflooded by the desire to serve the Lord. As confirmed by Jamunacharya, since he has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, there is always a current of newer and newer desires flowing to serve the Lord, so much so that the stagnant desire of sex life becomes very insignificant. Jamunacharya even says that he spits on such desires. Bhagavad Gita 259 also confirms, Param Drishva Nivartate. The conclusion is that by developing a loving desire for the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, we subdue all material desires for sense gratification. Continuing in the Krishna Book. Akrura knew beyond a doubt that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Vishnu. Lord Vishnu glances, something with this microphone, Raman, I don't know, it's too much gain or something. Lord Vishnu glances over the material energy, and thus the cosmic manifestation comes into being. And although Lord Vishnu is the creator of this material world, he is free by his own energy from the influence of the material energy. By his internal potency, he can pierce the darkness of the material energy. Similarly, Krishna, the original Vishnu, by expanding his internal potency, created the inhabitants of Vrindavan. In the Brahma Samhita, it is confirmed that the paraphernalia and the abode of Krishna are expansions of his internal potency. The verse? Ananda chinmaya rasa pratibhavitabhis tabirya eva nijarupa tayaka labhi goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. I was just reading yesterday in the 5th canto, in Prabhupada's letter books, that he recommending that when you speak about Krishna consciousness, you should quote frequently from the Brahma Samhita. He said this will be very effective and beautiful if you quote from the Brahma Samhita. So it's Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis. This verse says that all the expansions of Krishna are completely spiritual. They're the same quality as Krishna. So everyone in the spiritual world has the same spiritual nature. Akrura also considered the necessity of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. He thought that the transcendental activities, instructions, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna are all for the good fortune of people in general. The people can remain constantly in Krishna consciousness by discussing the Lord's transcendental form, qualities, pastimes, and paraphernalia. How can people remain constantly in Krishna consciousness? What is the meaning of discuss? Where does the word come from? And what's a verse, while you're looking that up, from the Bhagavad Gita, which says that devotees discuss constantly the topics of the Lord? Together? Machita makata prana bodhayanta parasparam katayanta shamam nityam tushanti cha ramanti cha. Why is that? What is one reason that verse is famous? Because it's from the Chatur Shloki Bhagavad Gita. It's the second among the Chatur Shloki, 10.9, and it says that the devotees mat chitta, their consciousness, mat kata, prana, their life, air, bodhayanta parasparam, among themselves they're always speaking about Krishna, katayantashtamam nityam, they're always speaking Krishna kata, katayantashtamam nityam, tushanti cha ramanti cha, therefore they get satisfaction, and tushanti cha ramanti cha, high level of pleasure, highest level of pleasure. And what other question did I ask? What does discuss mean? Why don't we have any microphones? Oh, okay, go ahead.
I'm saying that it's a very unusual, or at least I thought, very unusual origin. The meaning, it's 1300 to 1350, Middle English, Anglo-French, discusser, Latin, discussus, which means struck asunder, shaken, scattered. And it's a past participle of discutere. I would have never thought that it was to do anything to do with shaken.
Discuss. Can you go deeper into that word somehow? find out why it means that. Do we have an OED? Oxford English Dictionary. We need an OED. It's only about 40 volumes, that dictionary. But you can get, unfortunately, you can get it electronically. But it tells the history of each word. I guarantee you we don't have an OED back there. But you can look in the other one, see what you find.
There's more origin as well. It says also it's from Latin discutere, which means to investigate.
Investigate.
And
That
from
makes
Latin
sense.
to dash to pieces. So they're
Investigate. Go deeply into the matter.
Yeah.
So this is something Prabhupada mentions in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The devotees should spend time discussing and investigating Krishna's pastimes and the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And they should discuss and investigate thoroughly, threadbare. What does threadbare mean? Threadbare. What does threadbare mean? So you wear something so much that all of a sudden the threads start to show, right? That's how much you should discuss. So Bhagavad Gita, I read Bhagavad Gita. I read that. Right? Is that thoroughly threadbare? What does thoroughly threadbare mean in relation to the Bhagavad Gita? Well, if you want to see, you look at Hari Vilas. He's the temple president of the Seattle temple. And notice how he has been carrying around the same Bhagavad Gita for about 40 years. Same Bhagavad Gita. He's got notes and lines and things. The Bhagavad Gita looks like it's been across the ocean several times, through several storms, and he holds it like this. It's like, it's held together by his conscious, attraction for the book. And that book, you look at it, you go, that's threadbare. So the books, they shouldn't, when you open them from the library, somebody has a set of Bhagavatams, you shouldn't open one of them and it goes crack like it's brand new. When you open a book and it goes crack, it's brand new? Or you shouldn't look on someone's shelf and see that it still has the plastic on it after. How long you had those? Oh, I had them 2 years, and there's still plastic on your books. You should have gone through them by now. These books, they're meant to go through thoroughly threadbare. It means read the Bhagavad Gita over and over and over and over and over again. New meaning comes out. At the end of the Bhagavad Gita, when Sanjaya is speaking about his experience, he said, my hair is standing on end. My hair is standing on end hearing this dialogue. We should hear this Bhagavad Gita in such a deep way, appreciate how Krishna is driving the chariot of Arjuna and why he's speaking the Bhagavad Gita out of compassion and what he's actually saying in the Bhagavad Gita. Our hair should stand on end. We should not be, it doesn't become old or dry. Over and over and over again we discuss it. And never do we come to the point we say, I understand that verse. And Prabhupada, I noticed on a morning walk once, not that I was on the walk, I heard this walk, that Prabhupada had mentioned a verse about Krishna is light, Maya is darkness. He said, does anyone know that verse? And one of his leading men jumped forward and said, I know the verse, Prabhupada, I know the verse. Maya, he said, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andakara. And he recited it sort of there was a little bit of feeling like, I know that. And Prabhupada then stopped and he said, do you know it eternally? So how deeply do we investigate each verse? One of Prabhupada's godbrothers, Kinchana Krishnadas Babaji, he was a Sanskritist. He was a very powerful devotee. He was a Babaji. All he'd do is chant Hare Krishna practically 24 hours a day. And he learned so many shlokas. But I was visiting his samadhi a couple years ago, and his disciples of his, I think there was his disciples, they were telling me how he'd always go so deeply within one verse. He didn't want to move on until he felt like he really had some realization of the one verse he had. He didn't take it lightly. It was not something glib where he'd just say the verse and not think about it deeply. So we should investigate the philosophy of Krishna. And what's another verse, a famous verse from the Chaitanya Charitamrita where Kaviraj Goswami says that we shouldn't be lazy in discussing Siddhanta. Siddhanta Bolya Chitena Kara Alash. Could we see that verse? Siddhanta Bolya Chitena Kara Alash. 2:117. Adi Leela. Second chapter. 117.
294.
Okay, look at this verse. One, 7. There it is. I'll say, please repeat. Siddhanta bolia chite nakara alash. Iha hoite Krishne lage sudrida manash. Word for word. Siddhanta, conclusion. Bhuliya, considering. What does bhuliya mean? Chite, in the mind. If I say in the mind, what Bengali word would you give me? Chite, because e at the end, it means in something, like na kara, do not be, alash, lazy. If I wanted to call somebody lazy in Bengali, what would I call them? Is that correct? Okay. Iha, this. Haite, from. Krishna, in Lord Krishna. Again, there's that E at the end. It means in something. Lage, becomes fixed. Sudrida, very firm. Manash, the mind. Manash, the mind. A sincere student should not neglect the discussion of such conclusions, considering them controversial, for such discussions strengthen the mind. Thus one's mind becomes attached to Sri Krishna. Let's see the next verse. Nacharyamarman Chaitanya Mahima Jani E Shabd Siddhante Chittadrida hoye lage mahima jnana hoite. Translation. By such conclusive studies, I know the glories of Lord Chaitanya. Only by knowing these glories can one become strong and fixed in attachment to him. So this is necessary to have this iha hoite lage sudrid manash, to have a very strong faith and direction in Krishna consciousness. One must discuss thoroughly threadbare the philosophy of Krishna consciousness to come to this point. And Kaviraj Goswami is saying, because of this discussion, because of these conclusive studies, I know the glories of Lord Chaitanya. Only by knowing these glories can one become strong and fixed in attachment to him. Shamalangi.
I had a question. When Akrura is going to Vrindavan, I assume he'll be seeing Krishna for the first time. Is that? I mean, he hasn't seen him earlier, right?
I can't confirm or deny that.
Okay, but I think there's one sentence which says that he's thinking of his eyes, and he seems to know everything about Krishna, even if he's not saying that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead and all his sins will be washed. So I know he's a great devotee, probably one of the greatest, but how does he know all that?
Well, this is, in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami calls this Purva Rag. Purva means before, and Rag means attachment. So before one meets Krishna, there's this attachment that develops by hearing about him. You can come to know everything about Krishna by hearing about him from others, because he's non-different from the vibration. And so there are many devotees who have heard about Krishna, and then they become, what's that? Rukmini? Yeah, Rukmini. Brahmana's wives, they also heard from the gopis who were, when they were when they were out shopping, there was some discussion going on. And it was all about Krishna. Instead of mundane, envious, shop talk and Gramya Katha, they're all absorbed in talks of Krishna. So one who hears about Krishna can come to know of his glories, and because it's absolute, they come to appreciate his qualities, see him.
I was just thinking about the fact that to read things scrutinizingly and going deep into one of the I was talking to one of my friend's husband. He's from India, and so they kind of have this thing that we know everything, so that I don't have to go deeper into the scriptures to learn more about it. So he was expressing his opinion, and he said that I don't think Krishna is great. And to me, he's just a person with some. He's just a person who has some mystic powers, and that's it. And I was just later.
Yeah, Aghasura was just a garden snake. Was that Shishupal? So why you glorifying Krishna? He fought some garden snake, Aghasura.
Yeah. So then I was thinking that as we delve deeper into our scriptures and read Prabhupada's purport, then you understand that there are mystics, but about the limitations of a mystic yoga, what they can do, and how Krishna is the Yogeshwar, how he's beyond.
Mayashitanam naradarakena. This is Shukadev Goswami says, those who are in Maya, they think Krishna is just an ordinary person. And Krishna says, Naham prakashya sarvasya yoga maya samavrita mudho yam nabijananti loko mama jamavyam. Those who are covered by my yoga maya, or Mahamaya, they don't see me as very great. They just think, oh, it's an ordinary person. Pratibha? Here comes the microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, just to continue to the same thought that Shraddha Mataji was saying, that I generally say, I hear that a lot too, that because my husband thinks too the same thing, that Krishna was some person that had some powers and all that. So I always say that only when you develop attachment and start developing that relationship with Krishna, that he will start reciprocating. Till then you won't feel. Then why are there so many devotees that have spent like 40 years of their life since they developed that attachment to Krishna, and because they get some kind of reciprocation back?
Yeah, there's definitely reciprocation. Prabhupada uses that same argument when he talks about Balaji and other deities, and he said they're established by the acharyas, who are greatly learned sages. He said they were not fools. They're not. This is not simply a stone. And he said, and then millions and millions of people come every year to see these deities. Are they simply bewildered? But they're getting some reciprocation. And same thing, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, when he first saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, said, nice sannyasi, a little young. And Gopinath Acharya was saying, you don't know who he is. You want to instruct him and tell him about sannyas life. He's the origin of all sannyasis and so forth. How do you know he's God? He said, because I have his mercy, I know him. When you have his mercy, then you'll understand also. But then also in the Shastra, it's there. But one has to have the will also to read the Shastra and find it. If someone reads Shastra with an idea that, like, what is this? What is this? Some kind of historical literature, I know better. They'll make some interpretation. And then, Maya Prita Jnana, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, they're great scholarship. They may be greatly learned scholars, but they'll miss it. Just like the husbands of the wives of the the brahmanas who were performing sacrifice, when the cowherd boys came to them directly and said, Krishna Balaram in the forest, they're hungry. And they didn't even look at them. They just kept doing their work like, what's this? We're not even going to lower ourselves by talking to these people, and who's this Krishna Balaram fellow? But then when the wives heard, they came running out to the forest to meet Krishna because they had this purvarag. They had already developed this love for him by hearing from the devotees. They had mercy. And then later, when the brahmanas saw that their wives had gotten this mercy, then they began to condemn all their learning. So we thought we knew everything. We know everything. I met a man once. We were going door to door. He was knock, knock, knock. He comes out of the door and he sort of, like, he was in his bathrobe still. It was noon or something, and he, not there's anything wrong with that, but he came out and he was sort of like, I could hear there was people inside and everything. He kind of didn't want us to expose them to us. So he stood in front of the door and he goes, so what? What do you want? What do you want? And then there's Bhagavad Gita, we're showing, I know that. I know everything. And I said, you know everything? That's fantastic. And I called all the other devotees, said, you got to get up here. I want you to meet this, my name's Vaish, this one, he knows everything. Okay, tell us everything. But this mood, Krishna says, is prohibitive. One can't understand any knowledge in any realm if you think you know everything. If you go into your biology class and you sit down and the teacher starts talking about, cellular biology, yeah, I know that. Why wouldn't I know that? Teenagers do that a lot too. Yeah, I know that already. How do you know that? You're just a kid, You don't know anything. You think you do. So Krishna's amanitvam, adamvidvam, the humility, pridelessness are the prerequisites for entering into this. I know everything. Those who are very advanced in knowledge, the more you know you don't know. The more you become humbled by the overwhelming nature of the absolute truth, and you feel like, I'm just a beginner. Should always be in beginner's mind. These are the very advanced devotees who feel like that. Even though they're having newer revelations about Krishna, they feel like, I'm insignificant. They become humbled by the experience. And Krishna says in that section about humility that just like a tree, when it's full of fruit, then it bows down. The tree bows its limbs. So similarly, a person who's full of real knowledge actually bows their head. They're not all upright and thinking, I know everything. Akrura also considered the necessity of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. He thought that the transcendental activities, instructions, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna are all for the good fortune of people in general. The people can remain constantly in Krishna consciousness by discussing the Lord's transcendental form, qualities, pastimes, and paraphernalia. By doing so, the whole universe can actually live auspiciously and advance peacefully. But without Krishna consciousness, civilization is but a decorated dead body. A dead body may be decorated very nicely, but without consciousness, such decorations are useless. Human society without Krishna consciousness is useless and lifeless. You know the verse that correlates to this? No, there's one that's a nice verse, but there's that without Krishna consciousness, it's just the decorations on a dead body. Akrura thought that Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna has now appeared as one of the descendants of the Yadu dynasty. The principles of religion are his enacted laws. Those who are abiding by such laws are demigods, and those who are not abiding are demons. He has advented himself to give protection to the demigods, who are very obedient to the laws of the Supreme Lord. The demigods and the devotees of the Lord take pleasure in abiding by the laws of Krishna, and Krishna takes pleasure in giving them all sorts of protection. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, these activities of Krishna, his protecting the devotees and killing the demons, are always good for men to hear and narrate. The glorious activities of the Lord will ever increasingly be chanted by the devotees and the demigods. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the spiritual master of all spiritual masters. He is the deliverer of all fallen souls and the proprietor of the three worlds. Anyone who is able to see him by eyes smeared with love of Godhead enjoys a festival of seeing. Today I shall be able to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who by his transcendental beauty has attracted the goddess of fortune to live with him perpetually. As soon as I arrive in Vrindavan, I will get down from this chariot and fall prostrate to offer my obeisances to the Supreme Lord, the Master of material nature and all living entities. The lotus feet of Krishna are always worshipped by great mystic yogis, so I shall also worship his lotus feet and become one of his friends in Vrindavan, like the cowherd boys. When I bow down before Lord Krishna in that way, certainly he will place his fearless lotus hand on my head. His hand is offered to all conditioned souls who take shelter under his lotus feet. Krishna is the ultimate goal of life for all people who fear material existence, and certainly when I see him, he will give me the shelter of his lotus feet. I am aspiring for the touch of his lotus-like hand on my head. When that hand, touched by the presentations of King Indra and King Bali. These two became, when that hand touched the presentations of King Indra and King Bali, these two became qualified to be lords of the universe. And when that hand touched the gopis as they danced with Krishna in the Rasa Leela, it relieved all their fatigue. I'd like to welcome everyone who's online today. Thank you for joining us via the internet. And you can text in at what number?
(650-245-7018). I'm repeating, 650-245-7018.
Please send us a text with a question, a comment, or just say Hari Bol, and we'd like to know you're out there. Or you can speak up. You can also join the conversation today by conference call. You'll see the number on your screen, and you can join the conference call, and then we can hear you in the class. So now what's the verse? Yeah, that's it. You got it. Good research. Tell us where the verse is from so Ramananda Saka can bring it up. Got to turn that on.
Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 19.75. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 19.75.
In your shloka book?
It is actually from Hari Bhakti Suddhodaya, page number 405.
Okay, from the Hari Bhakti Suddhodaya. We'll have to find something from the Hari Vamsha today too. From the Sri Hari Vamsha. Okay, from the Hari Bhakti Suddhodaya. I'll say, please repeat. Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Jati Shastram Japastapaha Apranasyeva Dehasya Mandanam Lokaranjanam. Word for word. Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya, of a person devoid of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jatihi, birth in a high caste. Shastram, knowledge in the revealed scriptures. Japaha, pronunciation of mantras. Tapaha, austerities and penances. Pranasya, which is dead. Eva, like. Dehasya, of a body. Mandanam, decoration. Loka, to the whims of people in general. Ranjanam, simply pleasing. Translation. For a person devoid of devotional service, birth in a great family or nation, knowledge of the revealed scriptures, performance of austerities and penance, and chanting of Vedic mantras are all like ornaments on a dead body. Such ornaments simply serve the concocted pleasures of the general populace. Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya. If you don't have bhakti, you got nothing. So that's a good verse. What do we have here? Okay, funny messages coming in.
So this is Kathleen Mataji, and she's saying that please let the Hare Krishna Maharaj, please let the devotees of Silicon Valley know that I am humbled by their knowledge. And she's saying, please tell Guru Maharaj that I will remove the plastic from Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Thank you, Kathleen. That's beautiful.
Actually, in the section when Vidura is, Narad Muni is telling to Yudhishthira Maharaj, in this conversation, one of the purport comes, and first line of the purport really struck me, which Prabhupada said that we should not feel proud about the borrowed plumes.
Don't feel proud about borrowed plumes. Borrowed plumes, yeah. Yeah, nice. And another one. Another text just came in?
It's partially coming in.
Okay, partially. We'll get it in a minute. Continuing, Now, wasn't that profound about Krishna's hand? He mentions who? Which two devotees? Indra and Bali. So when touched by the hand of Krishna, they received special benediction. So coming close to Krishna in any way, special benediction. And who else got their hand, Krishna's hand on their head? Prahlad. Out of parental affection, Lord Nrsimhadev placed his hand on Prahlad's head. Kubja, yeah. Dhruva Maharaj got the conch shell. And now something profound Prabhupada says for our encouragement, but it's a fact, obviously, but he says that don't think that Prahlad having Lord Nrsimhadev's hand on his head and you're chanting Hare Krishna are any different. Same. You have to realize that. How you're being touched personally by Krishna. Who could stop chanting if they realize that? If they're feeling that, having that experience that Krishna's personally present in his name, he's embracing me, he's touching me, and so forth, then one won't stop chanting. What would be the impetus to stop chanting at that point? So Akrura is here meditating on his way there about Krishna's lotus hand and how just by the touch of the hand, one becomes benedicted in wonderful ways. Krishna is so wonderful. In this way, Akrura expected blessings from the hand of Krishna. He knew that Indra, who is the king of heaven and the master of the three worlds, the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems, was blessed by the Lord simply for his offering a little water, which Krishna accepted. Similarly, Bali Maharaj gave only 3 paces of land in charity to Vamanadev. Here, look up this section, especially about the water offered to Indra. Indra offering water, Krishna accepting. Similarly, Bali Maharaj gave only 3 paces of land in charity to Vamanadev, and he also offered a little water, which Vamanadev accepted, and thereby Bali Maharaj attained the position of Indra. When the gopis were dancing with Krishna in the rasa dance, they became fatigued, and Krishna wiped his hand, which is as fragrant as a lotus flower, growing in the Manasarovara lake, over the pearl-like drops of perspiration on the faces of the gopis, and immediately the gopis became refreshed. Thus Akrura was expecting benediction from the supreme hand of Krishna. Krishna's hand is capable of bestowing benediction upon all kinds of men if they take to Krishna consciousness. If one wants material happiness like that of the King of Heaven, he can derive that benediction from the hand of Krishna. If one wants liberation from the pangs of material existence, he can also get that benediction from the hand of Krishna. And if one, in pure devotional love for Krishna, wants personal association and the touch of his transcendental body, he can also gain that benediction from his hand. And then the Chaitanya Charitamrita Prabhupada mentions about deity worship. When we're doing the archa worship, we're actually touching the transcendental body of Krishna. And those who have that service, who have purified themselves, taken the trouble to regulate their senses, become purified, come to this stage where one's qualified after accepting second initiation to worship the body of the Lord in the form of archa. They can experience this for themselves on a daily basis, how Krishna is touching them, how they're touching Krishna. It's a very intimate kind of service. One who's doing this kind of worship, dressing the Lord, bathing the Lord, every day, what kind of intimate association they're having with Krishna's hands and his lotus feet and his toes and everything. So this worship of the deity goes right along with the chanting and the study of philosophy, because then one practically experiences it. This is a very balanced day. If you get up and do your japa, your shlokas, your ashtakams, and then you also worship the deity, where you're going out and collecting things for the deity. This is part of it. You're collecting flowers, you're putting together nice fragrances, everything holds together, everything you collect, and you're thinking this is all for the deity. And then you actually get to go in and handle the deity, because it's your service, you have to, in order to bathe him and dress him and do all these things. You do that, then you're balanced. Your body's satisfied, your mind's satisfied, your intellect's satisfied, everything's satisfied, and then everything else in the material world looks void and pale. all the other lower sound vibrations coming from the radio and stories about and cell phone and everything else. And you can do whatever you have to do, but you're totally detached. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janayat Yashuvairagnyam Jnanam Chayat Haitukam. You have knowledge and you have detachment, which is necessary to move steadily on the path of devotional service. Correct? Which verse proves that in the second chapter of the Bhagavatam, that one must have these. How does that prove it? Go ahead.
The
Try to
supreme
defend it.
occupational duty or religious duty of a mankind is to engage in transcendental loving devotional service of the Lord, and that devotional service should be uninterrupted, unmotivated, to completely satisfy the self.
Okay, it's good, but a little indirect. I was saying, what verse proves that you need both knowledge and detachment in order to move steadily on the path of devotional service? You have to be fortified with these things. All right, give him the microphone, he's ready.
तस्र दधाना मुनियो ज्ञान वैराग्य युक्तया पश्यन्ति आत्मनि चात्मानं भक्त्या श्रुत गृहीतया.
Explain it. Just explain it from your knowledge.
From my knowledge, like tasra dhanam munyo gyan vairagya yukta, by having the gyan means knowledge and gyan vairagya with detachment, with knowledge and detachment, a seriously inquisitive person can pashyanti atmani chatmanam. He can see he can see himself and he can see everything. Bhaktya sruta grihitya, by following, and he can understand the sastras.
Okay, let's hear the translation.
The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment,
Well equipped with knowledge and detachment.
realize that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti.
Yeah, he gets this jnana vairagya, it makes him fortified, steady. And grihita, it means one must be thoughtful also. You have to be thoughtful to advance in devotional service. This is, Jiva Goswami makes much of this verse in the Bhakti Sandarbha, and he mentions the verse, and he says you have to be fortified, and you also have to be thoughtful. You have to be thoughtful. Now, where were we? Can I go back to this? Yeah. All right. Akrura was afraid, however, because he had been deputed by Kamsa. Oh, okay, yeah, I knew there was something else. So the hand, by offering charity, I'm assuming it's this long purport right here, right? By offering charity to that lotus hand, Purandara and Bali, Purandara means? Indra. Earned the status of Indra, king of heaven, and during the pleasure pastimes of the rasa dance, when the Lord wiped away the gopis' perspiration and removed their fatigue, the touch of their faces made that hand as fragrant as a sweet flower. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, by offering water to symbolize one's intention, sankalpa. You know, during a fire yajna, you sit down, they put water in your hand, and you do the sankalpa, and then they let the water, you're making your vow. To give charity, symbolizing one's intention, sankalpa, to give charity. Purandara, Kaushika, and Bali perfectly worshipped that hand and attained the post of Indra to rule over the three worlds. The offerings of water into the Lord's hand were performed by Purandara during the avatar of Swayambhuva, of Sarvabhauma, and by Bali during the avatar of Vamandev. Thus, Purandara became Indra, and Bali will attain the post in the future. At the time of the rasa dance, Krishna used his lotus hand to wipe away the drops of perspiration from the limbs of the gopis, which had arisen from the fatigue of enjoyment. This is stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10:33-20. This subtly indicates that just as Krishna's lotus feet, although worshipped by Balaram, and other demigods carried the remnants of kumkum from the gopis' breasts. Similarly, the lotus hands, even though worshipped by such personalities as Indra and Bali, performed the service of wiping away the perspiration from the faces of the gopis. Such is the super excellence of the sweet mood of the Vraja gopis. What is the nature of Krishna's lotus hand, you ask? You were all asking that? The Puranas call the lotus found in the Manasarovar lake Saugandhika. Everyone say Saugandhika. Saugandhika. Sri Krishna's hand acquired the aroma of this flower by touching the beautiful, fragrant faces of the gopis, though Akrura was a Dasya Bhakta. Because he is speaking to himself, there is no rasabhasa. Satisfied? Yes or yes? Akrura was afraid, however, because he had been deputed by Kamsa, the enemy of Krishna. He thought, I'm going to see Krishna as a messenger of the enemy. At the same time, he thought, Krishna is in everyone's heart as a super soul, so he must know my heart. Although Akrura was trusted by the enemy, his heart was clear. He was a pure devotee of Krishna. He risked becoming Krishna's deputy just to meet Krishna. He risked becoming Kamsa's deputy just to meet Krishna. He was certain that although he was going as a representative of Kamsa, Krishna would not accept him as an enemy. Even though I am on a sinful mission, being deputed by Kamsa, when I approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I shall stand before him with all humility and folded hands. Surely he will be pleased with my devotional attitude, and maybe he will smile lovingly and look upon me and thereby free me from all kinds of sinful reactions. I shall then be on the platform of transcendental bliss and knowledge. Since Krishna knows my heart, certainly when I approach him, he will embrace me. Not only am I a member of the Yadu dynasty, but I am his relative and an unalloyed pure devotee. By his merciful embrace, surely my body, heart, and soul will be completely cleansed of the actions and reactions of my past life. When our bodies touch, I will immediately stand up with folded hands with all humility. Certainly Krishna and Balaram will call me Akrura uncle, and at that time my whole life will be glorious. Unless one is recognized by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his life cannot be successful. Recognized. It is clearly stated here that one should try to be recognized by the Supreme Personality of Godhead by one's service and devotion, without which the human form of life is condemned. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord, the Personality of Godhead, is equal to everyone. He has no friends and no enemies. But he is inclined to a devotee who renders him service with devotional love. The Bhagavad Gita also declares that the Supreme Lord is responsive in proportion to the devotional service rendered by the devotee. The Supreme Lord is responsive. Akrura thought that Krishna was like the desire tree in the heavenly planets, which gives fruit according to the desire of the worshipper. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is also the source of everything. A devotee must know how to render service unto him and thus be recognized by him. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is therefore explained that one should serve both the spiritual master and Krishna simultaneously, and in this way make progress in Krishna consciousness. Service rendered to Krishna under the direction of the spiritual master is bona fide service because the spiritual master is the manifested representative of Krishna. Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that when one satisfies the spiritual master, he satisfies the Supreme Lord. It is exactly like service in a government office. Anybody work in a government office? One has to work under the supervision of the departmental head. If the supervisor of the department is satisfied with the service of a particular person, a promotion and increase in pay will automatically come. Akrura then thought, when Krishna and Balaram are pleased with my behavior, certainly they will take my hand, receive me within their home, and offer me all kinds of respectable hospitalities, and they will surely ask me about the activities of Kamsa and his friends. In this way, Akrura, the son of Shwapalka, meditated on Sri Krishna on his journey from Mathura. He reached Vrindavan by the end of the day. Akrura passed the whole journey without knowing how long it took. When he reached Vrindavan, the sun was setting. As soon as he entered the boundary of Vrindavan, he saw the hoofprints of the cows and Lord Krishna's footprints impressed with the signs of his souls, the flag, trident, thunderbolt, and lotus flower. These symbols are the souls of the Lord's transcendental lotus feet, are worshipped by all the demigods and other great personalities throughout the three worlds. Upon seeing the footprints of Krishna, Akrura immediately jumped down from the chariot out of respect. He became overwhelmed with all the symptoms of ecstasy. He wept and his body trembled. Out of extreme jubilation upon seeing the dust touched by the lotus feet of Krishna, Akrura fell flat on his face and began to roll on the ground. Akrura's journey to Vrindavan is exemplary. One who intends to visit Vrindavan should follow the ideal footsteps of Akrura and always think of the pastimes and activities of the Lord. As soon as one reaches the boundary of Vrindavan, he should immediately smear the dust of Vrindavan over his body without thinking of his material position or prestige. Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung in a celebrated song, Vishaya Chadiya Kabi Shuddha Habiman. When my mind will be purified after leaving the contamination of material sense enjoyment, I shall be able to visit Vrindavan. Do you know that song? Can you sing it once? Just that line? Microphone.
Hare Krishna. Vishaya chadiya kabe shuddha bemana.
That was worth the price of admission. Shuddha Habiman. I know I'm here somewhere. When my mind will be purified after leaving the contamination of material sense enjoyment, I shall be able to visit Vrindavan. Actually, one cannot go to Vrindavan by purchasing a ticket. The process of going to Vrindavan is shown by Akrura. When Akrura entered Vrindavan, he saw Krishna and Balaram engaged in supervising and milking of the cows. Krishna was dressed in yellow garments and Balaram in bluish. Akrura also saw that their eyes were exactly like the beautiful lotus flower that grows during the autumn season. He saw Krishna and Balaram in the spring of their youth. Although they had the same bodily features, Krishna was blackish in complexion, whereas Balaram was whitish. Both were the shelter of the goddess of fortune. They had well-constructed bodies, beautiful hands, and pleasing faces, and they were as strong as elephants. Now, after seeing their footprints marked with flag, trident, thunderbolt, and lotus, Akrura actually saw Krishna and Balaram face to face. Although they were the most influential personalities, they were glancing at him with smiling faces. Akrura could understand that both Krishna and Balaram had returned from tending cows in the forest. They had taken their baths and were dressed with fresh clothing and garlanded with flowers and with necklaces made of valuable jewels. Their bodies were smeared with the pulp of sandalwood. Akrura greatly appreciated the aroma of the flowers and sandalwood and their bodily presence. He considered himself very fortunate to see Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his plenary expansion Balaram face to face, for he knew that they were the original personalities of the creation. As stated in Brahma Samhita, Krishna is the original personality of Godhead and the cause of all causes. Akrura could understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead had appeared personally for the welfare of his creation, to reestablish the principles of religion and to annihilate the demons. With their bodily effulgence, the brothers were dissipating all the darkness of the world as if they were mountains of sapphire and silver. Without hesitating, Akrura immediately got down from his chariot and fell flat, just like a rod, before Krishna and Balaram. Upon touching the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he became overwhelmed with transcendental bliss. His voice choked up and he could not speak. Due to his transcendental pleasure, incessant tears, torrents of tears, fell from his eyes. He remained stunned in ecstasy, as if devoid of all powers to see and speak. Lord Krishna, who is very kind to his devotees, raised Akrura with his hand and embraced him. It appeared that Lord Krishna was very much pleased with Akrura. Balaram also embraced Akrura. Then the two lords took him by the hand and brought him to their sitting room, where they offered him a very nice sitting place and water for washing his feet. They also worshipped him with a suitable presentation of honey mixed with other ingredients, otherwise known as madhuparka. When Akrura, this is part of the puja process, you offer these different substances to the deity. One of them is called madhuparka, which is like a milkshake. When Akrura was thus comfortably seated, Krishna and Balaram offered him a cow in charity, and then brought very palatable dishes, and Akrura accepted them. When Akrura finished eating, Balaram gave him betel nut and spices, as well as pulp of sandalwood, just to make him more pleased and comfortable. The Vedic system of receiving a guest was completely observed by Lord Krishna himself to teach all others how to receive a guest at home. It is a Vedic injunction that even if a guest is an enemy, he should be received so well that he does not apprehend any danger from the host. If the host is a poor man, he should offer at least a straw mat as a sitting place and a glass of water to drink. Krishna and Balaram welcomed Akrura in a way just befitting his exalted position. After Akrura was thus properly received and seated, Nanda Maharaj, the foster father of Krishna, said, "My dear Akrura, what shall I inquire from you? I know that you are being protected by Kamsa, who is most cruel and demoniac. His protection is just like the slaughterhouse keeper's protection of animals he will kill in the future. Kamsa is so selfish that he has killed the sons of his own sister, so how can I honestly believe that he is protecting the citizens of Mathura?" This statement is most significant. If the political or executive heads of the state are simply interested in themselves, they can never look after the welfare of the citizens. As Nanda Maharaj spoke to Akrura with pleasing words, Akrura forgot all the fatigue of his day's journey from Mathura to Vrindavan. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 38th chapter of Krishna, Akrura's arrival in Vrindavan. And now we have a couple of texts that came in.
Suji Dharmendra Saraswat Prabhu is there, and he's thanking you for the nice interactive discourse. And here's a question from a number I don't recognize, so I'll get the name later, but the question is, I had a question about the all-important chanting. I enjoy and relish Kirtan, but I have a hard time chanting japa. Why is it so?
You and everybody else, because the mind is very difficult to control. It's like the wind, so it requires practice. And one has to practice a lot over time. And it's best to practice in association with devotees. Because if you try to do it alone, your mind will overcome your determination. But if you practice in association with devotees, if you sit down with others who are chanting their japa in a determined way, say you're chanting 8 rounds a day and they're chanting 16, then you'll start thinking, well, they chanted 16, why shouldn't I chant 16? They paid attention to their japa, why shouldn't I pay attention? They have a taste when they're chanting, why shouldn't I have a taste? Or why can't I have a taste? By that association, you become empowered to do more and to do it steadily. But if you can't do that, then practice every day and try to do it at the same time and try to do it in the same place, because the mind thrives on regulation, and over time the mind will become the friend. And the holy name is non-different from Krishna, and you can take help by calling out to Krishna like a helpless child and ask for him to please give you some mercy, and then you'll succeed. Others have succeeded, and you can too. You simply have to follow, even at times when you don't have a taste for it, follow in the footsteps of the great souls who do have a taste, and then eventually you'll also get a taste. That's the benefit of following. Anything else? Okay. We thank everyone who joined us online today, here from the studios, our studios in Mountain View. Yes? 70 devotees online? We thank all 70 devotees who have joined us here at the ISV studios. The broadcast is now moving on to a Guru Puja, which is rightly done by worshiping the pure devotee of the Lord. One can derive all benefit for practicing devotional service. So we'll sing a song written in Bengali which glorifies the spiritual master. And we're worshiping our founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And then we'll have a kirtan and then prasadam. And after that there's services to do because we're coming up on Janmashtami. Already the temple room is beautifully decorated. And there are innumerable services to do. The most relishable of them all are cleaning services. So those of you who don't have enough service yet, or don't have any service, I recommend that you volunteer for cleaning something. Find out who it is who will engage you and say, I want to clean something. Today, tomorrow, the next day, whatever it is, and become an expert cleaner, because that's the fastest way to clean your heart and actually get a taste for chanting the holy name. Also, if Rajesh needs any help with transporting devotees, these kinds of services, actually working the shoe booth is way up there too. I noticed that the devotee in Vrindavan who works at the shoe booth during the Kartik season has attained some mystic cities because it's like he's not even looking at people. He takes their shoes, puts them on them, and there's no number or anything, but when they come back, out of the tens of thousands of people that come to the shoe booth, he just takes the right shoe down, puts it down in front of him, and great benedictions that come from these menial kinds of services. So take this advantage of this Janmashtami time to jump in and get the most out of it that you can by doing some menial service, and then you'll be benedicted. Vancha kalpatarubhascha kripasindhave vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.